On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. I'm your host, Sarah Parker, and I currently have braids from Tenerife. What a vibe! What a vibe. What I didn't think about was that actually going out for walks in cold Baltic Stoke-on-Trent would mean that my head would get cold between my now braided cornrowed hair. There's a little fact for you, my people. We are back and it's time to vibe into 2026. We are very, very close now, my people. And of course, I hope that being with you over this time, over Christmas, has been super cool. It was really nice to pre record the episodes before leaving and knowing that I'd be with you because I did have a bit of a hiatus, as it were, from social media, etc. And just, doing some scheduled posts, a few holiday posts, a few stories, etc. But being able to take a step back, as we could frame it, I guess. However, guys, I don't really like to frame it like that because I just love what I do every single day. Now, today's episode, I have released two of the Sarah's Brain episodes talking about two friendships that are very dear to me, that live on now and have done for many, many years. And I wanted to almost do a bit of a yin and a yang, or how could we frame it? Another flip side, another thought process towards, friendships, connections, how things can change over the years as we grow as people, as we find ourselves more, you know, it's not always easy when you do make deep connections that you can't imagine not being part of your life, and actually they end for a certain reason. Now, this could be, an intimate relationship, this could be a friendship. Today, I'm going to talk about a friendship that was, I would say, my first proper deeper friendship, one that was like, whoa, it was like a sister. It was like I had, you know, someone that was going to be part of my life forever. And the friendship actually came to an end. And I want to sort of dig into it a little bit, be with you guys as we're making maybe intentions into 2026, because I can sit and do podcasts about, my dear friends and how amazing that is, and talk about the highs, as it were. But that part of my role is to bring the other side to certain things, and this isn't to do in episodes that is negative, that is a downer, or anything of that nature, but perhaps sharing this little story could give you some thought processes as you do set your intentions for a new year. Now, I'm definitely not in the camp of new year, new me, but I am in the camp of setting intentions, reflecting, thinking about what you want to do in 2026. And that's going to potentially include the environments you have around you, the people you have around you, because I think we can forget sometimes that our environment is actually based on people as well, because it's who we're surrounding ourselves with. And that's important. So I'm going to take you back many, many years. I believe, I was around 18. I'm going to guess that because I can't actually remember. I know I have a good memory, guys, but that's quite some time. That's like 18 years ago. It's a while. And I was a young adult, basically. As I said, first sort of deep, deep connection I'd probably experienced with a friend in adult life, as it were. Now, this friend was someone I met through work, and we just hit it off and we became inseparable. We would, go out together, we would stay in together, and she was someone that just seemed to get me, and I got her. And funnily enough, she was actually a twin. And it was funny because, she had her twin, and then there was sort of me as the third wheel, as it were. Now, during that, period of time, we got to know each other very, very well. We would be, messaging constantly every day. We would see each other at work. We'd be doing things together all of the time. And as time, moved on, I then, of course, got with my ex-husband, and she got with her partner, who I believe they're still together now. And they actually met on a dating site, and he sort of joined our little trio or duo, as it were. And it was really nice actually because I got on very well with him as well. And as time passed, the years passed, it became more of like a me and my husband or partner at the time, and me being able to have this sort of, extended couples that date together, as it were, couples that do things together. And again, I hadn't really experienced that myself around, having like, you know, two couples together that you do things together, like maybe holidays, spa breaks, whatever. And that was cool. The dynamic changed, but it very much was still a very, very close knit bond. And we would just start to do things together. And, me and her were still very, very close. We'd still speak about everything, things like sex life, all of the things that you talk about with your nearest and dearest, things that were happening at work. We'd air our stresses, support each other, etc. We would do, big things at Christmas and birthdays and so on and so forth. Now, I I feel like, as we started to grow older, of course, I was getting more into bodybuilding. She was actually pursuing a career with working with children, which she was very, very good at. She always wanted her own child. And I've toyed with the idea of children, but it's not something that I'm gonna do. As far as I know, guys, I don't there's reasons behind it, but I'm not gonna look to, go into motherhood, which everyone has their own decisions. Now, obviously, incredibly excited for her when I got the news that they were expecting a baby. Now, I was, with her the first port of call when the pregnancy test was done and all of these things. And, that in itself brings that close bond, right? I was the first person she spoke to. And, the excitement was building. We were getting ready for it. And it was like, oh my God, there's going to be a little baby Beb, super exciting. And as that time got closer, of course, supporting her, baby shower and all of the things that you would expect. When the baby was born, obviously it's a big, big change in her life, and the adaptations need to take place. Having time off work, raising a child. She was extremely good with children, but obviously it's different when it's your own child, the sleepless nights, etc. And that's to be expected, but you never know how that's going to be in reality. And of course, as I expected, she was bossing it. And it did get to points where, she had time off work and it was getting intense. Her baby became very, very attached to her because she was, of course, with him all day, every day. And she's so motherly. She absolutely is. She's one of those people that you could say was put on this earth to become a mother. And she was getting ready to sort of start going back to work and looking at how she could look at getting, a childminder or nursery, etc. And it was becoming hard because the attachment and the bond was so close that he had to be with her because he would cry, he would get upset and unsettled. And I'm sure, if you're listening and you're a mum or you have people around you that are a mum, maybe you might have experienced this before. And it's a beautiful, beautiful bond. And, it's a pleasure to see. But what I could obviously foresee as a close friend was that this was becoming difficult for her to then look for childcare from both sides, for her to want to go to work, which is, she wanted to, but I feel like it's, going to be very difficult when you're maybe worrying about the baby, is he okay, etc., and what that's going to look like as a regular basis. And I went round there one day, and I held him, and he was crying straight away. His dad held him, he was crying straight away, and as soon as she took him back, he was fine. So this bond was so, so close, and it was probably insensitive of me to say it in this way. At the time, it felt like I was just being the person she knew, the real person that would always give her an honest opinion. You know me, guys, honesty is super, super important to me. And I expressed, Is there anything I can do to help? Because I feel like the bond that you have got with baby, it's going to be difficult for both of you. And I'd like to support you because I don't know how you're going to feel going to work and leaving him with, childcare or nursery or her parents, etc. And, do you think there's things that you could start to think about to bridge that gap, as it were, and get you both ready? And I said it flippantly, saying it like that out loud, you could easily, think, okay, so that's, a logical thing to share for someone that you care about. And that's what I felt it was at the time. Then this led to, a period of time where it was just the vibe wasn't there and she was quite off with me. She was withdrawing from me. And I didn't know if it was, obviously everything going on. She's a new mum, right? They got a new house, they were planning a wedding, etc. And I really didn't know what to do. And then it came out that essentially she felt that I had, judged her. I'd put my opinion on her, and I don't know because I'm not a mum, which absolutely, I don't. I never would pretend to, ever, ever, ever. Now, the reason I want to share this story essentially is because I felt like I was doing the right thing and I spoke probably without thinking at the time because we had that close bond. So it was like I could always say what I was thinking. And this is what I always say with the people close to me. I always say what I'm thinking, and I believe that I care, right? So you know that I'm not being a dick. I don't feel like I'm a dick anyway. But I felt like I was just trying to help. But in that scenario, she's sleep deprived. She's obviously worried, and there are elements of, she is trying to do her best. And was that sort of, it didn't feel like an opinion the way I said it, but was that like a defense mechanism? Was it an opinion? And what I realized was I could have probably just shut my mouth. I probably could have just, you know, maybe dealt with it differently, maybe not tried to intervene. But I took that pursuit of the truth, as it were, to the literal. And then she just I wrote a letter to her and she just could not forgive me. She felt like I was, not understanding her and giving this opinion. And she didn't get back in contact with me. I wrote this letter, I was sobbing my heart out. I was writing and writing and writing. And I was just, apologizing and trying to say I didn't mean anything by it. So the lesson I learned from this is that, one, I could have probably fought more, and dealt with it differently. Or I say that, but as I'm recording this podcast, I'm like, actually, how could I have thought about that more? Because I really wanted to help. And this is the hard thing, guys, and I wanted to record this authentically, as I always do. We can't turn back time. And if I hadn't said something, would I be in the same scenario where I wish I had said something and actually she'd said to me, well, you didn't offer to help me? And then it's like, what do you do in these scenarios? And it's an incredibly hard one because I didn't want to lose my best friend, my sort of sister, as it were. I didn't want to lose that. And by, offering help, but not in the way that was digested as I'd hoped it would be, it's wild that that couple of sentences caused me to lose, what I would describe as one of my closest friends. And that wasn't, we weren't able to pick that back up. She couldn't forgive me for that. And it was cut and dry from her side. Now I don't know, I haven't spoken to her if there's any thoughts from her side, if she'd ever think about, changing her mind, etc., etc. But I know that she's from afar, I know that she's happy with, her little family, and that's all I want for her. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, sometimes we can do things, say things, act in a certain way, and it's not taken on board by someone in the way that we hoped it would. And that can leave us feeling very upset, very empty, not knowing what to do. Because if someone cuts you off and they literally cut you off, you can't contact them. I'm not going to become a stalker and go around her house because that was, her decision. She did not want to, continue the relationship. So what do you do? And this is the thing, we can question ourselves. We can want to turn back time. We can want to reconcile our side, but then we have to, almost be self-aware enough to respect someone else's decision. Does that make it easy? Absolutely not. And, I must admit, it does float through my mind at times, how would that have been if we'd stayed friends? And one of the biggest things I held for a very long time was, but she knows me and she knows I care about her. So why would she think I was trying to attack her or anything of that nature? Why would anyone that I love so much think that I'm attacking them, think that I'm, trying to do anything negative? And that's really hard because this is where, different levels of communication, different scenarios, you never know how things are going to pan out at times. And, I had to accept that. And I do think about that in relationships. And I feel like it's probably contributed to my circle being pretty small, and also seeking out certain people from my circle that, you know, like that I'm honest, like that I'm direct. But also I feel like when I do go into friendships now, guys, I preface it. And I've just sort of realized that in my own mind where I'm like, anything I ever do or say is I'm trying to do my best and trying to do my best as a friend. And I feel like I probably do preface it based on that, as I say, thinking about it now. And the thing is, guys, in friendships, in relationships, sometimes we do fuck up. Sometimes we get things wrong. Sometimes we don't communicate enough. Sometimes we read the room wrong. And, it doesn't matter how self aware you are, how intuitive you are. Sometimes we get it wrong, and apologizing at times is appropriate. It absolutely is. Taking a step back to understand if an apology is appropriate or whether you feel that actually, this was this was a blown out of proportion scenario. It's difficult because it's scenario related and person related, right? And I'm not here to tell you how to deal with certain scenarios, but I feel like it's just a very interesting take on, a friendship that was what it was and then it was nothing based on, something I said that got taken in the way that it did. And I believe, staying true to yourself and actually, if you do apologize, if you try to reconcile with someone and actually it's a no, or if you do reconcile and things are thrown back at you from, time ago or whenever it was, there's got to be an element at times where we have to make tough decisions, because resentment isn't only in intimate relationships, it's absolutely in friendships as well. And if you do overcome a hurdle, I believe that it's, a time to say, when you do overcome it, can we leave that behind? Can I learn? Can I, get to know you better? Can I understand you more? And can we move forward? Because having this sort of cloud or anything over your relationship, it does become resentment. That can lead to toxicity, that can lead to a multitude of things, that can lead to anxieties, overthinking, you know, projection. None of those things are nice to be on the receiving end of. And I feel like, if these things happen to you, you know it's happening to you and it doesn't feel nice. And we are human at the end of the day, guys. We can't turn back time, but we can learn from scenarios, we can learn from friendships, intimate relationships as to how and if we want to change, evolve, stick to who we are. Because all of these lessons learned, we can utilize. And it feels horrendous when you part ways with certain people in your life. And as I said, you do question yourself. And what I want to sort of summarize this with as we, as I say, we enter towards the new year is that if you're acting with morals and, truth, and you do get something wrong, and maybe you could have turned back time to make it better or, act in a different way. It's always important to try and go within and go, okay, so in that scenario, was I truly doing my best and did I, miscommunicate or did I get it wrong? And if I did, we can forgive ourselves as well, guys, because if we lose a friendship through this, or, it's not the same, that can lead to self sabotage. That can really make you question yourself. And, you know, whether it was a mistake, whether you could have handled it differently, I feel like it's important to be able to give yourself that peace, and maybe step back a little bit to process or reflect and understand more, and that's important, because when we start to question ourselves, it can be quite a rabbit hole, and it doesn't feel nice. And I believe that, if we've had these scenarios and it's something that you're looking at 2026 to step away from someone, or, evolve to be better at communicating yourself, or any of the things I've mentioned, we can absolutely look at those things and be self aware to it, and continue to do our best, be the best versions of ourselves. On the flip side, if you haven't been the best version of yourself in a scenario like this, what can you do that's going to help you to move forward? If you did make a mistake, or you fucked up, however we want to frame it, how can you move forward to forgive yourself? And if, on the other flip side, if someone's treated you in a certain way, and if you are looking to reconcile, if you're going to forgive someone, I urge you to forgive them. The resentment, as I've mentioned, or holding things in and not truly allowing that person to apologize, and allowing them to move forward with you, it's never gonna it's never gonna feel good, guys. Anything like resentment is like a rot inside you, and it's horrible. It really, really is. So if you are reconciling with someone, if you are moving forward with someone that has hurt you, that has maybe communicated in the wrong way, or any of these things, I would absolutely look within and understand if you are able to forgive wholly. If you need to say any more, if you need to get anything off your chest, perhaps this is a time to consider that, because it's important. Because, you know, to enable the freedom of the mind and the life, you don't want to walk on eggshells. You don't want to live with regret. Ideally, I would say, I don't want to just put my opinion on you guys, but I imagine most people want to be able to live as free as possible. And these things, they do rot your soul. And as I say, this is not negative. This is not me trying to, put out an episode that is a Debbie Downer, because that's not what we want. But we know life is not sunshine and rainbows. It absolutely is not. So, as promised, I wanted to give a bit of a spin on things, to give you more thought processes into the two previous episodes of how friendships have formed and they're just fucking amazing, to how friendships can break down, and how we can evolve and be better ourselves. And we can also learn to forgive ourselves or other people if that is right. And that's the point. Going within and understanding yourself more is a lesson in itself when it comes to relationships. Because, as I say, guys, we are human, although, of course, we are bodybuilders. And although we're made of the hard stuff, we do get hurt at times, guys. Emotions are a thing. Now, without further ado, New Year's Eve is tomorrow, and then I will be with you on New Year's Day. I've already planned my next few episodes of the 12 Days of Christmas, and I'm going to be sharing some very cool anecdote, funny stories. One from my mum in Tenerife and my stepdad. One about something that I applied for, or some things that I applied for that you won't know about. And it's basically exploring doing things that scare the shit out of you. So I will leave you on that cliffhanger, guys. But of course, New Year's Eve, we have a conversation I had, and hopefully you enjoyed that one. Any feedback, guys, please, please, please reach out. Anything else you want me to look at and cover, please reach out. And of course, we do have our extreme series coming this January. Guys, the guest list is phenomenal and I cannot wait. And without further ado, I will look forward to being in your ears tomorrow. And of course, guys, let's get ready to see 2026 in.
On the sixth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 geese a laying, 5 golden rings. 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.